Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Here today with a completely new tree in my collection that I bought yesterday. The goal for this video today is to give you a little overview of this tree, talk a little bit why I chose this tree, where I bought it from, and of course also discuss a little bit the plans I have for this tree, because now at the end of growth season I'm not gonna work too much on this tree today, but I still want to discuss a little bit my vision for this tree. So let's talk a little bit about where I found this tree. And I actually found it at a grocery store that is normally not a place where I do find proper bonsai material, but this tree caught my eye because it is potted up in such an interesting angle in this pot, and it has such interesting features all around this actually exposed root that makes it, I think, a good contender for a quite interesting looking bonsai. It also is very healthy. That normally is the case with many grocery stores, that you don't find them in such a good health condition, but this one is very healthy, a lot of new growth, and that was the reason why I decided to buy this one. And maybe showing you a little bit about the graft on here. It is grafted, so this is a different variety than the actual root base here, a variety with smaller leaves that are simply better fitting for bonsai. And the graft is, yeah, probably one of the factors that I'm not too happy about this tree, or one of the few factors actually. Here on this side the graft looks nice, however they only grafted on one side onto this trunk here. It doesn't look like, maybe they tried it at one point here, but it has died back, and so we have a big stump showing in here actually, that in the future we have to think about how to best hide this. So we might shave this down to a point to hide it a little bit, but that is something I want to look at a little bit further down the road. Right now, end of growth season, new tree in the home, in a new environment, that would be too much on this tree. What I will do a little bit later, for example, here you can see a little bit of dieback, so we will take that out, and I might stunt the growth a little bit on some of the very long shoots that have developed on this tree over, I don't know, the last couple of months since it has been shipped, I guess. But before we really start working on this tree, let's talk a little bit about my vision that I have for it when it comes to working on it, probably starting next growth season, so come spring. I do like the way it is potted up somewhat, so I do like this sort of leaning look here on the trunk. I call it now simply the trunk, even though it is root actually, but of course in Ficus Ginseng trees we use it as trunk. What I don't like that much is the small root down here. So once we repot it, we will take it out of the soil, because right now it is simply in a, it seems like bark, coco coir mixture. Probably for winter it will be fine. I need to make sure I don't overwater, because I'm now used to more inorganic soil and not really the organic soil. Probably when we take it out of this soil, we will then see where the roots are actually located. I do expect most of the root mass coming from those big bulbous roots here, and probably some roots also here from the smaller one, but should be still enough to take this out completely and have the tree still get all the nutrients it needs from the rest of the roots, then from the bigger part of the tree actually. Because yeah, it's too big to look nice as an aerial root. Unfortunately here there seem to have been quite interesting roots that could have looked nicely as aerial roots, but they were cut back by either the producer or somewhere alongside transportation. There are smaller roots still here, which makes me think this has been potted up a little bit deeper actually when it was grown, because they are dry now and brittle, so they have died back because they're no longer reaching any soil. Here we can also see there was some root cut back at one point. And as I mentioned, I do like this leaning part, because it makes it look more interesting than normally the Ficus Ginseng you can find that are just, yeah, big bulbous root and then just foliage on top. This leaning that we can even probably exaggerate a little bit more by then in the future even leaning it a little bit further down to almost a semi-cascade. I think this could look very, very nice for this tree. So something like this you could picture could look very nice. But for that, of course, we need to make sure this tree stays healthy until then. And what can we do for that? For example, here we have a little growth that comes from the actual trunk here, so from the other tree in this grafted constellation here. So that is something I would take out right away. They just sap off energy from the rest of the foliage, so there's no need to keep them. The foliage also isn't really as fitting for bonsai. You can see already here the smaller leaves are very elongated. They would get bigger and bigger if we let this grow, so best to take this out. And I would say let's work still a little bit on this tree. There is some things we can look at and some things we can do. For example, here we have this very long shoot here that is not ramifying whatsoever. So that is actually something that I would take back quite considerably to hope to get some ramification going on here. This could actually make a nice cutting, so we'll simply put this in a glass of water. We will remove the lower leaves for that, just to give you an idea how this could look like. Maybe even this one here. And pop this in a glass of water, and hopefully it will take root and we can take a little cutting from this. But back to the task at hand, there is some dieback. That often is the case when you get a tree like this into your house, that there has simply been some dieback of branches that we can of course also remove. It is a very dense tree, so I don't want to go in too much detail, but smaller things like really these long shoots here, I would simply shorten a little bit, even though it is of course additional stress on the tree, but that's already all that I want to do when it comes to pruning. I think it still improves the look a little bit again, makes it a little bit bushier, makes it a little bit more compact, which I think does fit for this tree. And it also helps us again to look at what design we could take. And I do see this rather as the front, I would say. I do like the features on this side quite a lot. It also of course hides here, as you can see, the cut and the stump here. So when we pot this up also in a different pot, then I will probably rather tend to use this as the front. We might also remove this little root here that is not reaching the soil, even though I do see it as, yeah, it's not a hindrance to taking this as the front, but we also don't really need it. We might at one point even start to clear out these parts here, even though if we even just leave it on like this, I do find it looks quite nice on the tree. And that of course also means that the foliage we have to then keep in mind growing a little bit more in this direction, so we might also at a later point start to wire this out a little bit. Here, for example, just opening up a little bit, and also then here on top seeing in which direction we want to take this actually, to have this as the front of the tree with what we cut back right here. If it grows a little bit also in this direction again, I think we're on a good way here, and it is for now enough of a setup for this tree to look good in the future. So we'll keep you updated on this. As I said, for winter now I will simply make sure I take care of it, I make sure I don't water it too much, make sure I keep fertilizing it in case there is new growth showing, and then come spring we will get in and really work on this tree. Probably repot it is the first thing we're gonna do from winter to the turn of spring, so when it is still somewhat dormant, I think that is a good time for this one to get repotted, and then sooner or later we will then start to work on the foliage a little bit more, wiring it, of course pruning it in the direction we want to take it. But yes, a lot of tasks will be had with this tree and will be done with this tree. And of course, when the time comes, I will keep you updated on the progress in these videos. So if you want to see that, of course, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. So until then, take care.